Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have me the one and only Ruric Douglas. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to have you on the channel. Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk a bit about your background. So go ahead and tell me where you're from.
Where I'm from? Well, originally I'm from Maryland, in the States, and traveled around a lot in my younger years, and now I live in Georgia.
That's cool. Where did your interest in magic begin?
I'd say probably from a young age. So I grew up in a really strict Christian household, right? So of course that kind of really ingrained a lot of different beliefs in me. But there was something a little off to me about it. Like reading the Bible when I was younger and stuff, there were a lot of things that big exclamation points for me. I was like, I not necessarily believe all this, and I think there's got to be some truth to it, but there's also going to be some something else no one's really talking about. So I've always had it in the back of my mind that there's got to be something else out there, and we have it all wrong. So that's kind of like, I guess, where my interest started. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So where would you say that you had your first holy shit moment in magic, where you're like, wow, this really worked? Like, were you just amazed at the results? Like, can you describe that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so the very first really crazy holy shit moment for me was working with Astarte. So I called on Astarte. I had a petition in mind and stuff like that. And I was thinking all day about it. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to do this. I had it all set up. I had my sensor. I was actually renting a room at the time, right? So I put a towel on the door and stuff like that. I had incense going, and I was like, trying to do what I wanted to do, but yet, not have everyone else know about it. Air out the room afterwards, whatever. But I had this little sensor with I had like alcohol and stuff, and I had flames going and stuff like that, and I'm calling on Astarte, and man, that was such a surreal experience, because at that point, I had, it was never a question of belief for me. Like, I knew these beings existed, right? But I didn't know how physical it could really be for me, right? So I called on Astarte, and I could hear dogs going wild out in the neighborhood, and like there was like this wind in the room, like it was like circulating and like picking up, like I'm in a hurricane, in the flames going up like 2 feet in the air, just like doing this tornado thing. Yeah. And then she got so dense and so restricted. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone was doing a massive bear hug around me. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, holy shit, she's here. I'm like, well, I gotta say what I'm here to say, and it's like barely breathing out the words, like petition. And just like that, boom, it was gone. As soon as I said what I said, like that whole room, the energy just dissipated. I could tell she was gone. And I was like just left with my jaw on the floor being like, wow. Like, yeah, this, like, I don't know. It was like an epiphanous moment there. Like, I don't think I really understood what I really was getting into, but at the same time, like, how real these entities truly were. So yeah, that was a great turning point for me too.
Years and years ago, I remember calling on Astarte, and I remember at one point, every time I would shout, the candle flames would shoot up really, really high. Like, I mean, like, so like, let's say they're like this high on on an altar table. Well, when I would shout, they shot up like almost to the ceiling. I was like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I can definitely relate to working with Astarte. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's interesting to watch as you do rituals and stuff, how, nature responds. If you're doing stuff outside, little things happen, and it just, it really builds on the experience, to be honest. And Yeah, it's very interesting how, even, if you have a fire going or whatnot, flames shoot up like 12 feet in the air, the whole time you're
Yeah.
doing a mission.
Well, not only that, I mean, you can definitely feel the energy that is different outside as opposed to just being indoors.
Oh,
You know.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And where I do ritual right now, we have a giant circle and whatnot, and just starting the rites, doing some, some conjurations and whatnot. You could feel the energy from around the land just seeping into the circle, like it's just being, and it's such a high, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, now, how would you describe your magical style?
Um, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked that. I actually get asked that a lot. And like, what is it you do? What do you do? What do you call yourself? What's your title? What's your label? Right? And I really don't like to be labeled or subscribe to any particular thing. It's like the way I look at it is magic is magic, right? I work with the spirits and from all different pantheons, right? And I just I call myself a practitioner, or a witch. I think that's an all-encompassing term. But yeah, I just work with spirits, man. I don't call myself a high priest or anything else like that. I feel like no disrespect to anybody else, but I really feel like those are all man-made titles that are self-given, and we all, and human nature, want to be part of some kind of group or have a structure, or what I'm saying, or a hierarchy that is made. And for me, I've been a loner for such a long time when it comes to my practice that just I don't know, it's such an individual path, I feel. And so for me, I just be like, yeah, I'll just work with spirits, man.
I, I like that take on it. I like to ask that question to a lot of guests because they have different answers.
Oh
But I
yeah,
do like the take.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Mhm. Now, what would you say? What book would you say changed your life?
Hmm. To be honest, uh, not really any book.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, I've read a few books, not a whole lot in the occult, to be honest. See, but there isn't any one that would really stand up out of all of them. To be honest, I was in a phase for a while that I just wanted to learn from the spirits directly, right? Because I felt like even though a lot of material that's out there is really good, and you can find nuggets and gold in pretty much everything, and but for me, I was like, well, that's someone else's gnosis, and as accurate as that might be, I wanted to get it straight from the source myself. So I'm not really as um, learned, for lack of a better term, than other practitioners. Reading a bunch of the occult material. But for me, I just wanted it to be just me and the spirits, and and you know, um, there are some things I like to read, like old mythologies and stuff like that. Which is very interesting. Even that's it's a story made by a man. I'm saying, like, we obviously know that Tiamat is still alive, right? So there's a lot of things in mythology that aren't necessarily true and accurate, but are entertaining, to say the least.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's it. That's very advantageous for you to be able to work with spirits directly because see, most people have to read a lot of occult books and do a lot of searching, and then
Mm.
they develop that, to where they can learn from the spirits. Me personally, it took me. I had to read probably 150, 200 books, occult books, to finally be able to, get into the flow of magic and understand it correctly and be
Yeah.
able to learn from the spirits. It took me a while, but it's a blessing for you to be able to just pick that up right away because most people aren't able to do that.
Well, I wouldn't say I picked it up right away. Like I said, there isn't a book that really stands out to me, right? That I can pick right off the top and like that's the one that really changed it all. uh, I did have to wade through so much stuff, as everyone does, on this path, because there's so much out there. You type anything on Google, man. I mean, you really do have to wade through a lot. To be honest, how I started on this path, like I still was thinking with the Christian mindset, right? I was still looking through that skewed lens, that perspective of, hey, I could just sell my soul to the devil and then I'll have this perfect life, right? You know, and I felt I was like, you know, I'm hard time, man. I've had a difficult life, to be honest, a really difficult life, and I was just fed up, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just, you know, fuck it. And I think that moment, I just was looking up everything I could find, you know, like how to sell my soul, how to do this, how to do, and I was just like this influx of information, you know, coming in, and I had to wade through that. But it wasn't until I really started making good contact with these spirits that I realized everything I've ever been told is practically a lie. You know, and these spirits and these beings are not what people think they are. And that's, for me, that's what inspired me even further. Like, well, okay, now I want to know what's really true. You know, what's really out there. Not so. Yeah, I mean, it's not to say, you know, I just right off the bat was like, I'm not reading anything, not doing anything. I'm just whatever the spirits say. You know, like, to be honest, even my abilities at the, you know, starting out was like not that great either. So, you know, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, what would you say is the biggest misconception about the occult?
Wow, that's like opening up a can of worms, my friend. uh I feel like it's just this occult scene is flooded with misnomers and stuff. For me, I'll have to say, for this question, what demons are really like, you know, because most people that enter on this path, if they're not LARPing, they're in it because, you know, they've seen so many horror movies and, you know, what Hollywood has portrayed them to be, as well as the church, right? And so like they want to be that adversarial person, and they want to be like, yeah, everything dark and gory and everything else, right? They have this perception of who these beings are. And, you know, during doing consultations with clients and stuff like that, it's a lot of managing expectations, and also kind of setting the record straight in some ways, you know, who these beings are. Like the fact that they're in, you know, a lot of them are involved in your own evolution, you know, want to help you and stuff like that. And, you know, they're loving and compassionate, and, you know, some of the best beings I've ever worked with, you know. And a lot of people have different misconceptions as like, man, they're just waiting in grandma's closet to jump on you, you know, and you know, feed off of you. And if you don't offer, you know, offerings at this certain time and, you know, exactly like this, whatever, you're done for, and they'll kick your butt. And I mean, it's crazy. It goes on. I mean, some of the things I hear from people, I'm like, what the, who told you that? But
Or
yeah.
like, what did you watch? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What movie is this from? Was this The Conjuring?
Right on, man. What does the left-hand path mean to you?
For me, I will say it means like just it's the path of, you know, raw truth. We're getting to it all. You know, I really don't really say that I'm left hand path or right hand path or all of it. Like I said previously, you know, I just feel it's there's one path, right? And everyone's path is unique, right? But it's all magic. It's, you know, you're all working with spirits, and but I think what really encompasses the concept, um, from my perception, is what's considered the left hand path, and that's working with these entities of just primal entities, you know, that they don't they don't have a lot of fluff to it, man. It's pure raw truth, and it's where you are going to be faced with everything that you are, and to become everything that you are. Discover that. Remember that. There is no there is no wiggle room, really. I mean, this is like therapy times 1,000. Like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is being on this path, but also, you know, with great reward. But it's a rough path, and it's I think it's the most honest. You know, it really gets you thinking outside the box and discovering who you are and what else is beyond this physical realm.
Okay. Um, Now, do you prefer to work most with entities or by yourself?
I work mostly with entities. You know, I do stuff on my own for sure, but it's always with the accompaniment of spirits because you know I feel like I'm always trying to learn, right? And I'm always trying to get better than I am, or to see things that I'm not necessarily seeing at the moment, right? And it's usually with the assistance of my guides or the beings that I work with that help me get there, right? So a lot of my practices is pretty much exclusively working with different entities. I'm not sure if that really answered your question.
It does. It does. It does. And I like your take on it. You know, me personally, I'm a little different. I like working with myself most of the time
Mhm.
because I feel that, you know, since, you know, we are all gods, you know, I'm God, you're a God, you know, I can, I can unlock those abilities, you know what I mean? And do things, do the work myself, but I may need assistance from time to time with this spirit or that spirit, which specializes in so and so that I have not worked on yet.
For
Um,
sure.
uh, Now, it's been my experience that if you tend to work with certain demons or darker entities, you ask them for things, they'll say, okay, well, I'll go ahead and do this. But what are you going to do for me? It's like you got some entities you work with, you end up owing them. And I don't like to be in that situation. And I also believe that I can harness that power myself, you know, eventually and do those things to where I try to make it to where I'm not reliant on other spirits as much as possible. But I do believe in working with other spirits because we do need their assistance from time to time. But I like that you have a different answer than me because that's, you know, that's basically what these interviews are all about, bringing everyone else's, you know, opinion and styles. I love it.
Oh,
I just love
absolutely,
it.
absolutely. You know, I will say at least my opinion on that matter. You know, I personally, when you talk about being in the debt of an entity, you know, like you're asking them for something, like, oh, what do I get in return? I don't really feel like it's that transactional, at least for me. And
Mm,
usually, something in return, it's usually for your betterment, right? It's like, you know, when I go into a pact with an entity, it's usually what you do on your end is still for your betterment. You know, whether it's, you know, hey, I want to meditate every day with you and do
mm,
this and that. You know, it's all for your betterment. I there At least from the spirits that I've worked with, there's not a whole lot of like, you know, oh, I want this and that and that. You know, obviously I do things and offer
right.
things to the spirits, you know. So I don't know. I guess I've never felt it to be that way, at least personally for me.
Yeah.
Also, like, but it is a learning experience for me doing things with spirits, right? So if I'm like going in and working on the astral, and I'm, you know, taking parasites off people and whatnot, or doing energy work on their energy body and patching things and whatnot, you know, my guide would be like, you know, oh, you can do this and then you can do that. And, you know, I wouldn't have known otherwise, you know, if they weren't shedding the light on that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. One reason I like to discuss that is that, yeah, I've, you know, some spirits will demand, you know, like now you owe me, but you know, some of them have you your best interest in mind. Will do this. It's for the betterment of you. Some of them don't and are selfish. It just depends on the spirit. Just like everybody's as an individual is different, you
This is
know.
true.
But that's what makes this so interesting is that you know we all have different take on things. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I've found with some entities that are really like, okay, what are you going to do for me? You know, it's also like a test of your commitment. Like, how committed are you? You really want to go down this route? How
Mhm.
committed are you? What are you going to do about it? Like, you know, what are you going to do on your end? You know, and I usually see that as a way of, you know, testing your commitment to whatever it is that you wanted.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, Now, what do you tend to draw energy from when doing magic?
Oh,
I
it's
mean, some people just draw from their own energy. Some people draw from the earth. Some people draw from the moon. Some people, you know, have different sources of energy flow that they do.
To be honest, it depends on the working. Most often, I'm using my own energy. and then replenishing that, but it depends on, sometimes I'll draw on the black sun for certain workings and stuff like that. It depends on what I'm doing and, what energy current I think is best, for that particular application. But for the most part, I use my own energy.
Okay. Okay. Now, what would you say is the biggest mistake experienced practitioners tend to make?
Having a high ego.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big one. I mean, we all know that, but that could really hinder you, especially when you're trying to dive into channeling and stuff like that. I mean, we all have problems with channeling and getting past that filter, that psychic filter that we have with our ego. I have problems with that, and it's just really, really hard. You can never completely destroy the ego. You can have many ego deaths, but it will always come back. You always have to deal with it, right? But there are people that just, man, they get a little bit of gnosis and they just, they got a ego a mile high, and then, that's it also morphs into like a way of escapism, where they're just off in their own little world and they're so sidetracked from what they should be really doing and what they should be channeling. And I mean, I guess they're not really as connected as they should be because they've now taken themselves on a different road and in their own little bubble that they've created.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
exactly. They've created their own little bubble and they want as much people in that bubble as they can, which eventually it's going to pop if, with your ego. So I definitely see what you're saying.
That's human nature, man. We're all so tribal. We're so tribal. We want structure. We want to belong to something, and we want to, because within that we can essentially gain rank, right? So essentially be that, I'm above you and so, and I've made it thus far in whatever structure that's been created. We really like that, man. And then us versus them kind of mentality. You see that everywhere. But yeah, I think that all stems from that.
Definitely. Now, what is your favorite divination method?
It used to be automatic writing, but lately that's kind of fallen by the wayside because it seemed at first like there was a delay because I had to write, right? And it was like I would get the information and then I'd be writing it down, then I'd be looking at it, and instead it got so much, like all the information I would get faster and faster. And it was to the point where I was like, man, what am I doing here? I just need to cast that aside and really just focus and process and do it directly like that. So basically, I just channel the spirits. Sometimes I will have a notebook, just to jot down notes sometimes. But I really feel like that's an extra step that I've decided to just cast away for now. But that's usually what I do. I actually was a big fan, I still am, of pendulums. I love pendulums.
Yeah.
As long as you consecrate them, because if you don't, just like any divinatory tool, it can be corrupted by other spirits around. You can have two people ask a question and you might get two different answers because there's some spirit actually.
Yeah, and like I was talking with a guest yesterday, I think some people underestimate the importance of cleansing your items, especially if you get them from a shop and you bring them home. They've been handled by other people. And who knows what entities are associated with those people, what kind of energy they have on them. So I definitely see what you mean.
Absolutely. Even with like tarot decks, like you in tarot, man, it's really important to saturate it with your energy and have no one else touch it. At least I would do. But yeah.
Okay, so let's get into Lawless Metaphysics as we get closer to the end of this interview. So, Lawless Metaphysics, tell me what the purpose of Lawless Metaphysics is, and in a nutshell, what it is to the subscribers that are watching that may not know.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, Lawless Metaphysics is a website where we do ritual for hire for anybody and everybody. As well as that, we also teach people and stuff like that. And it's a collaboration of multiple practitioners. So people we've all known for a long time and that we know are really legit practitioners. We all have our own style. You know, this path is so individual, right? So we all have our methodologies, different ideologies, and stuff like that. So we all have our own way of practicing, and you can see that throughout our different rituals that we offer. But it's a collaboration of multiple practitioners on this platform. So we want to basically put out information and gnosis about the spirits and working with the spirits, as well as, you know, offering ritual for hire.
Okay. Yeah. To our viewers that are watching, they are also on Instagram. They have a YouTube channel as well as a website. I encourage all the viewers that are watching to check out their YouTube channel. A lot of good stuff. And I'll have all the links below, all of Ruric's links and Lawless Metaphysics links below this video. You can check all that out. Ruric, it's great to have you on. I enjoyed this chat and getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's good having you on the channel, man. And we'll have to have you back sometime.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll do that.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody watching, go ahead and like, subscribe to Dark Sorcery.